much, a little bit of IWCOA stuff. I did watch the vast majority of D2s and D3s after I got home Friday from work, and throughout the day yesterday, I had them on double. Um, I had them on TV, and then the other was one on the phone.
How about
Okay.
D3 a finish a tie? Is it? I didn't even know that was possible.
So in team scores, unless it's a regional duel, they've never really had a criteria in anything I've ever heard of, ever. The only thing they'd have it is if for the sectional duel, if you had a tie for the regionals, which I believe is most champions, and then I don't even know what the second criteria is.
Interesting. Yeah, Jim, if you weren't aware, the Division 3 Nationals, Johnson and Wales and Lacrosse, right?
No, Wartburg.
Wartburg, they tied.
Oh,
So the
really?
big thing going into D3s was it was like Wartburg and Augsburg hadn't had the best of years, right? A lot of haters, a lot of people saying it's finally going to happen. 3 decades since the team title didn't go to a school with the last, it didn't end in Berg.
Yeah.
And then sure
We almost
enough,
had it.
Wartburg's heavyweight, unseeded, with 1 loss, wins the whole damn thing.
Yeah.
Wow.
Saved him.
Yep.
I've heard of Wartburg before. Plenty like it's in Iowa, right? Like, make sure I'm the right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I think that was like a big MMA hub at one point in time. Just kind of heard that.
Yeah, maybe. They've been good at Division 3 wrestling for a long time.
Yeah, they're the elite program at D3 for the vast majority. I mean, Augsburg's always been up there with them.
Yeah.
It's a lot of history between the two. Actually, Jim Miller was the head coach at Wartburg. His best friend was Dave Malachek, who was the assistant at Wartburg, who then went to Augsburg. And then they
Now he's at Lacrosse.
is Malachek at Lacrosse?
Yeah, Malachek's Lacrosse.
Wait, yeah. I forget.
Again,
But yeah.
Augsburg and Lacrosse, they have the same colors, so it's a little confusing sometimes. But I don't know
Yeah.
if they were the same thing. But
Yep.
yeah, a lot of stuff's happening. Obviously, the NCAA's are happening next week. I got a chance to do a little NCAA preview show with Brian Swaw and Jordan Blanton. That was fun.
Yeah.
You guys, Mark Stewart, when's the last time you've been to NCAA's?
2 years ago, I was at Tulsa. I did go to Big Tens this year. I sat front row above mat 3 for the finals. I was on day 2. I was at net front row all day. Day 1, I was on top of 2 and 4 front row. So it was a good time. It was awesome. I got to I could actually hear some of the arguments, some of the bickering and fighting between coaching staffs. It was pretty wild. There's a lot of really, really good wrestling. I think Illinois showed out for Illinois. That was the best they've looked in. As you got to see a little bit of what you thought they should look like all year, and you were waiting for it, and they did it. There were some really impressive performances. It's a lot of exciting wrestling.
Yeah. Big Ten's obviously always exciting. The best of the best are wrestling everybody. So it was great. And it did look like Northwestern's new facility, their upgrade, right? Is that the first time you've been in it since the new
No.
No, you've been there?
No. Yeah, I've been there. I've been to some duels there.
Okay.
Interesting though, they had to that's not what it really would look like. They actually bring in additional bleachers for that.
So it didn't normally look like that?
Well, no, it doesn't the seating was even closer, right?
Okay.
You usually have a little bit more space. So they had to bring in additional bleachers. But it's a really cool arena now. I wish they could host Midlands. I still think they could. But
isn't it the parking, and aren't they still updating the football stadium and stuff? I remember Midlands,
but they stopped hosting. Yeah, but they stopped hosting. They stopped hosting Midlands long before they put that stadium, started building the stadium. So I just don't think they want it anymore.
Well, personally, I was glad that the Midlands were, 35 minutes from me. So it was easy drive to get to this year. But yeah, so what else is going on? Finished it up this weekend. We actually had a pretty badass camp at Jim's house. Had Had a lot of good wrestlers. That was fun. And then COA states this weekend. I think that's finishing up kind of the high school season, right? And
Yeah.
then I saw Mark Stewart. I saw you were in the sauna today at Relentless working.
Yep.
And so today's kind of like that official transition day between high school season to off-season training. Kids are going to go find their clubs to train with, other places outside of their schools, and off-season tournaments are about to start. So national events are kicking off. They had the preseason nationals out in Iowa. Some Illinois kids went out there and wrestled. Mark Stewart lost, or not Mark Stewart, Aaron Stewart.
Aaron Stewart, yeah.
Aaron Stewart, brother of Mark Stewart.
Yep.
And he lost in the finals, which is surprising.
Where did you find the results for that? I did try to watch some of it.
I did not. I looked at results, just pictures, people posting results.
Yeah, that's all I could find as well.
Yeah, you have to log in to USA
yeah.
Wrestling.
I actually downloaded the app for the USA, like for the brackets now. You know how you have to do that? Because I'm assuming that's how Fargo's going to be. You know, it's a USA Wrestling event. So I thought, well, here, I better figure this out now,
so that you're not
before I'm screwing around. In the junior duels or cadet duels, all that stuff's going to be on this. So I kind of wanted to remotely familiarize myself with it. So it's similar to track wrestling, I guess. You know, you can what's nice is you can filter like what you want to look at, what you don't want to look at, which is kind of nice, you know.
You can get results based on the age and the age and gender, I guess.
Yeah.
What you want.
Yeah, you don't have to just like at track when you go like results and you got to go through, 8U, everything, like looking up at the IKWF results. There's a lot to decipher.
Yeah.
On this one, you can just filter out, and I'm sure you can on track too. I probably just don't know how, I guess, but
yeah,
little, I don't know. If I say it's user friendly, then it's user friendly because I'm not good at the, I'm not a great guy at Google.
You're a great Googler, Jim. Great Googler. Yeah. So off-season stuff's kind of kicking off. Finish up. Like going into the off-season. Some of the pros of the off-season. Mark, I'll actually just start. Mark, what do you think that the biggest pros are to off-season wrestling as opposed to in-season wrestling?
For me, it's about the partners. You can have a wider range of partners, whereas in season you're kind of stuck with and stuck isn't the right word, but you're only allowed to compete and work out and practice with your teammates from your local high school or from the Catholic or private school that you attend. And sure, you can do some supplemental training on Sundays, but that's more of a technique-based thing. I think a lot of clubs, if you're in my years of witnessing it, a lot of guys want to go in and have like hard, tough live go situations on a Sunday when you got people from all over. Because if somebody gets hurt, right? Nobody's on that kid's coach ain't gonna push his kids to come train with you guys on Sundays in that club. So for me, the off season, I love that we can just all the training from kids all over the place get together and just scrap. And I think that's why there's so much there's so many gains made in the off season is your ability to train with other people from programs outside of your high school.
Right.
Yeah, I think that is obviously very much certainty, right? A lot of stuff happens in the off season. Obviously, on one hand, some of the kids are not training, right? So while some kids are not training, the kids that want to make the gains and want to have the success in the next season are doing a lot of work, whether it's in the weight room more or if it's just in practices, constantly developing. I do like that there's a little bit less anxiety. I think in the off season, like you get to really work on positions with a little bit more openness. I think some people get a little stressed out during the season, but I would say that, having the exposure to different kids that are, maybe just 30 minutes away, but because they don't go to the school that you go to, you have a more it's just easier for you to get access to train with them. So that is
For sure.
definitely a positive.
I
Tim,
think as a whole, I think we're people tend to be. I don't think I would. I hope I don't fall in this category, but I think people that like tend to be less tribal once the season's over. Yeah, I mean, you don't have to bleed, you know, blue and orange or whatever color your team might be. You know what I mean? Like, oh, okay, you know, this kid's good, even though he doesn't go. You know what I mean? There's just a little less of that, which I think is a real good thing.
yeah, I do too. It definitely sticks. It goes more individual, focused on the athlete,
Yeah.
and everybody gets around. I think that's the cool thing about the off season and like the freestyle circuit in general is like everybody gets to watch everybody, and there's little animosity. Everybody's trying to be on the same. I guess if there is a team, it's the team of the state. Like everybody's trying to push each other to be the best in the country. So there is a positive to that stuff.
Well, I got a question just because I'm newer. What was it like? How many off-season places were there like pre-COVID? Because they all kind of popped up during COVID, right? Like you couldn't wrestle at school, so you kind of everyone got their own thing going. Was there that many preseason clubs pre-COVID or not?
I mean, I think clubs are growing. I think there's more clubs today than there were pre-2020. But there's, the start of wrestling clubs. Obviously, I think originated with overtime. I think that was the OG of successful wrestling clubs. And then obviously Izzy Style and I mean, what did you guys have? I mean, Poeta had his when he wasn't wrestling, when he wasn't coaching.
When we started getting into this is like 2015, 2016, which I mean, it sounds like it was a long time ago, but that was, that's nothing compared to like how long you guys been in the game. There was the only thing around was Alpha. It was called Alpha. It was, by the airport. Yeah. That was like the off-season training club. Like if you want to wrestle off-season, you go to Alpha. That's,
Yeah.
That's all I really remember.
Yeah, so I think it's just naturally growing. The sport is growing. I think people are getting more and more understanding that you got to continue to train off season. I think great coaches are coming into the mix, which is making it a little bit more enjoyable to train in the off season. I think it's not a hard thing to train in the off season when you have good coaches around, motivating you and stuff like that. So
yeah, I think that's the other thing that I wanted to touch on that makes the off season really special for kids is like, I don't care where you are anymore. The evolution of wrestling in the state of Illinois, former elite wrestlers who have decided to either try to make it a living doing it or whether they dish supplemental income because they're passionate about it. But we have like freak coaches all over the place nowadays. You can go anywhere in the state pretty much and within an hour find a program. In some areas it's a little bit more than that, but dude, it's all over the state. You get the opportunity to train with coaches who are elite coaches that had elite wrestling careers and just a wealth of knowledge of the sport. Like, I'm older than you, so when you guys are like, "Oh, pre-COVID," I'm like, "Pre-COVID, we didn't listen." In 1999, we had Sean Burnett pop up with I don't know, Geesey was around before that a little bit in different areas, but he wasn't like a club that like we didn't know about him. We went to Lake Zurich High School and trained with a guy named Mitch Shepard, and there was a lot of elite kids that went there, but it was like more like a romper room type deal where Mitch would reel us in and show us like some basic freestyle and Greco stuff, and then we'd scrap on our own. We never had a coach in our corner at Northern Plains or Central Regionals or Fargo. Well, we did at Fargo, but like when you went out to anything that other than that, you didn't have a coach in your corner. But
yeah,
then you got Format, and then by like 2007, maybe I think I don't remember when Izzy popped up, and then Poeta popped up, and then now there's everywhere.
Yeah. One name, I'll give you this name, Mark. Maybe you remember this, but when I was in middle school and high school, Ty Powers, who is
I remember Ty Powers.
Ty Powers would run just open practices out at Harlem Middle School. It would be all the Harlem kids, Brandon Lazowski, Marinero, Enderleys, and all the I mean, there was a ton of really good kids on that team, and that's where I would go. And then I would go wrestle with the Hananiga guys up at Hananiga a lot. So
Yep.
I always found places to train. But yeah, it's changed a lot. And I do think for the better. Obviously, wrestling is in a great position right now from a skill standpoint. So a lot has to be credited to that type of stuff happening.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that leads me into, the off season starting, there's a lot of growth that happens in the off season, but looking back, one idea that we've been talking, Jim and I have been talking about and wanted to kind of like bring up and communicate is how critical or how important the strength of schedule is during the high school focus out season. And I wanted to get into that a little bit. Maybe we could look up strength other people's schedules, but really just kind of a topic of conversation because I think it's worth having, and it might be I don't know. Some people might be offended by the conversation, but I think it's an important one to get out there. So, yeah. I mean, Jim, Mark, who wants to start?
So I popped up real quick. I just want to, because I popped this up earlier when Jim has also said he wanted to have this conversation about a couple weeks ago, maybe thought it'd be a good podcast topic. So I did look around a little bit. And some schedules are really easily laid out, so you don't have to and Montini's has done really well through their website, through their school website. And so when I look at the elite programs in the state of Illinois, just this, you don't even have to look past this year, right? Here's Montini's schedule. They open with a whatever, and then they go to St. Rita. By Friday the 6th, they were at the Ironman. They had people at the Ironman and people at the Donnybrook in Iowa, right? So you were in Ohio or you're at, depending on which kid. Then they have some other duels, right, that they probably have to due to their conference alignment. Then they go to Dvorak on 21st, 22nd. 27th, 28th, they're at the Flavin. The 31st, they were with Marmion at the CCL Quad. They were with Marmion Academy, ICCP, Loyola, Mount Carmel. On the 3rd, they were at the Cheesehead. January 9th, they wrestled Marist. Then they hit the CCL the 25th, and 2 weeks later they're at regionals, right? So just looking at that, they went to the Cheesehead, the Donnybrook, the Ironman, the Dvorak, the Flavin, and then just duels alone, they wrestled Marist,
Mount Carmel,
ICC, Marmion Academy, right?
IC2, Flavin. Yeah.
Yep, they wrestled them at the Flavin as well. That's just that. I looked at Marist. There's just tougher to explain on using the website because I got to click every page to go every week. Yeah. But they had a similar schedule too, where they were at a lot of this, and you see a lot of the same schools from Illinois that are doing really well at those tournaments. But go ahead, Jim.
What I did to make it easier, I Googled Will Denny track wrestling and just looked at where he was. You know what I mean? And then there's Mayor's schedule, right? Something like that. But I think here's why this came up though, the strength of schedule. Because remember when we were doing our rankings, we would say, well, this kid's 22-0. Well, this kid hasn't been out of his zip code yet. So of course he's 22-0, right? That's where all this started coming up with the strength of schedule talk. I guess obviously it's always been important, but as we were doing rankings, that's when it dawned on me. Obviously to you guys already knew this, but it really dawned on me when we were trying to do rankings. It's well, who the hell is this kid wrestled, or who's this kid, you know what I mean, or who hasn't he wrestled?
Yeah.
So that's when we would even bring it up. Well, this kid lost to this kid. Well, his only loss is to a 3A kid. Or, we were looking at, the 1A rankings or 2A rankings, whatever they were. So, yeah, Stockton, 175, Eli Larson. He had his loss was against two Iowa kids. He didn't lose to an Illinois kid this year, right? So it's strength of schedule,
Well, one thing that I thought about with it, and again, I think the season's tough, and college is kind of similar in the sense that you start to see some college guys avoid certain matchups, just maybe for future rankings that change. And obviously you have to eventually wrestle them at the Big Tens, and you see how that messed up all the brackets anyways. So sometimes it backfires, but it seems to me that everyone often defaults into gaming the system or gaming the confidence of an athlete. They want to maybe, make somebody think that they're better than they actually are, or so on and so forth. But, one thing that I was thinking about when it comes to this strength and schedule stuff is like, I was talking to a dad earlier today, and it's like, the sooner you can remind a kid that he's got a lot of work to do to become an elite wrestler, right? If his goals are elite, right? Oftentimes we're assuming that we're talking about kids that suggest that they want to be elite at this. They want to get to the college level. They want to wrestle at Division I level. Well, the sooner they recognize that they're still not good enough. And sometimes it's not in a healthy way, right? You always think you're not good enough. But it's like a loss reminds you that you have to get better. And the sooner that you remind yourself that you have to get better, that makes it a lot easier for you to have productive days at practice, because you just need to get better. It's a consistent, persistent pursuit to getting better. And I think avoiding some of those losses, Marty Kaiser, who I do the podcast with Northern Illinois, longtime Hananiga coach, he used to always say, if you don't have a loss, I'm not doing my job. Right. And just having the idea of going after a loss, not putting your kid out there in a position where they don't, have that match. Right. So being from the Northern Illinois area and not really getting, the same type of competition, I was always interested in going and finding the competition. So, I just think it's so important for people to be reminded that this is a tough game and you got to get better. So,
right.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Here's what I did. Here's another conversation I wanted to have with it, though, Mark, and maybe you'd be good to have with it, because you're always thinking about how to do things. And one of the greatest things that I think the IHSA has done in the last decade is eliminate the number of tournament dates that you can attend. And one thing that I don't think coaches realize is sometimes coaches protect some kids. And by protecting some kids, it actually protects the good kids, like the better kids, because they go, well, we can't take 10 kids to the Donnybrook because we only have 4 good wrestlers. But I've been thinking a lot lately as how the Ironman is structured. The Ironman only takes four kids from, how many, only Jimmy went from Marion, right?
Well, Braden,
yeah.
he got hurt.
Injured.
But
Okay.
What I will say is that, like, they did try. I did it again. They did try to get more than just those 2 in.
Yeah.
And they were told no.
Yeah.
So yes, it's a very select few, which is why I think it's important. It's cool. Like, I think what you're getting at is the idea that, like, okay, I can send my guys to other tournaments the same weekend I send my 2 kids to the Ironman, and we can still wrestle.
Or in Illinois' situation, how many kids at the Dvorak probably shouldn't be at the Dvorak, and how many kids could be at the Dvorak while not sending everybody, right?
Yeah. I think that the only thing with the Dvorak this year was like the clash in lacrosse. That was the same weekend. We went there last year. Well, I guess wouldn't be last year now because the Dvorak was pre 2025, but that was the only afflicting event or whatever that was mattered. But yeah, if you had a couple of good kids, send a couple of kids to the Dvorak, and then whatever else you did that weekend, go do that with the rest of the kids, right?
Yeah.
I mean, sorry, go ahead, Jim.
No, there's an ample amount of coaches. I'm sure there is. I'm sure there is at every program, right?
Well, I think that's a misconception. I think for a lot of programs there is, and I think at other programs there really isn't. And then what comes into play is whether or not the district is okay with you sending maybe a volunteer assistant, even though they've gotten ASEP certified and are totally covered through insurance liability to be there. Some schools still don't want to do it. That comes up to like whether or not you have an AD that is pro your sports program and what your vision is as a head coach. That was my experience in those situations. I'm no longer in that same capacity. Heck, I'm probably more of a fan now than I am a coach. I do more mentoring, but I still have a lot of like good relationships with people in those positions. But yeah, I think in a lot of programs, you're absolutely right, Jim. You can send. They have so many coaches that are good people that you can trust to send them, and the school district will trust to send them to one tournament while you have your other two coaches at this tournament.
Right.
Yeah. And I think you're spot on. Like some programs, if you're hearing this and you only have 3 coaches on staff, understood. I get it. It's how not every program is as as lucky to have, abundance, but a lot of programs have an abundance of people that are interested in helping and being a part of that. So I definitely agree. I think Mark is right. Some high schools are struggling with the amount of help and stuff, but so many seem to be more than enough to be able to send to multiple during the week or during the weekend. And that's what I think. I just wish people would think a little bit outside the box from a scheduling standpoint and be like, okay, how many kids do we have? Here's 2 tournaments on the weekend. How do we send these kids to that tournament? And I do think I put a lot of this next phase on tournament directors. Don't you think, Mark?
In regards to what do you mean?
The tournament director has to kind of try to make the best tournament, and the best tournament is the most competitive tournament at every weight class.
Yeah, I mean, I think I know what you're trying to say, and I agree with you. It would be cooler. It would be cool if we had tournament directors that thought that way, right? That's how us as wrestling junkies who want to see just the best wrestle the best all the time and like see that high level elite competition and just see tournament. Listen, if you have a tournament director who's super pro, making that the best tournament that weekend in the state of Illinois or in the country or whatever, you can make an awesome, an amazing event out of it, right? So yes, the tournament director could be huge on that, but I don't know. You got a pretty good relationship with people running the Dvorak, correct?
Yeah, I'd say I know them.
Yeah. Okay. So like, I know when I tried to get in the Dvorak years and years and years ago, couldn't get it. I was on a waiting list, and I can't tell you I had a great team, but I had some legitimate kids that could compete for top 3 placings, and I couldn't get in. And it was like, all right, cool, done trying. I'll wait and see if we ever get a call.
Yeah.
But I don't know ultimately who decides. Like, is that the AD that decides who gets in? They've got a number.
I don't think it's I think honestly, I think it comes down to the tournament director and. Yeah, I think it just comes down to a tournament director. And in this case, actually, the Dvorak, I mean, hopefully I don't offend anybody that I know, but they can call me if they do. Dvorak is an example of a tournament that I think has a tremendous amount of potential for a national level event, but they're not out recruiting the national level competition. I know of multiple teams that had the ability to send kids that they just did not they should not have been there, right? The kids weren't all-state wrestlers. And then on top of that, how do you recruit a top 10 program from outside of the state when you're not saying that every match that they get is going to be, a top 10 kid in the country or in the state, right? So,
right.
Well, I mean, they've had teams. I mean, I think we had Lake Highland Prep there.
Yeah, for sure. For sure in the past.
But it seems that they've gotten out of it. Yeah, right now there's nothing there.
And again, you have to, what did you say was the same weekend of that tournament? The Clash?
The Clash, and that was what were the ones in Oklahoma, Mark? The Tournament of Champion duels?
The Hall of Fame duels.
Hall of Fame duels.
Yeah.
That was our original plan. We were the Marion kids were supposed to go to Hall of Fame duels, and I don't know what the hell happened, but
School said they couldn't miss those days because of finals.
Okay. Oh yeah, I think okay. It didn't jive with the the end of the quarter or whatever. So I think they scrambled last minute to get into the Dvorak, and that was like, Dvorak ends up being second, third, fourth choice for the schedule maker of Marion because it's just not ultra elite anymore. I guess I know it. It had to have been at one point in time. And I mean, Wisconsin was there. Milton, they're good. Like there's a lot of good kids on Milton. I mean, all the
There's been many of those events that were, I mean, top five tournament in the country that year for sure. 100%. I remember watching Grant Gamble. Who did Grant Gamble wrestle a couple times there? I mean, there was some really good matches. Nate Moore would wrestle, I think Johnny Starzak. Well, that way, actually, Nate Moore, Johnny Starzak happened at Geneseo, right? So there's been so many tournaments in the state of Illinois that have been very, very top tier tournaments. However, I think over time things go up and down, and you have to compete for those top teams to come to that place. So you have to give incentives. You have to sell these guys. You have to build relationships. I don't even know if it's, like hotel discounts. Can you work a deal on hotels? I don't really know, but you have to figure out how to get the best teams to say, you know what, we're going to go so-and-so. And again, Ironman, obviously they've had the benefit of the Ironman being such a prestigious event for so long. Dude, I mean, they've got a waiting list. So I don't even know if they don't even have to go after people. But I do think tournament directors have to be a little bit more aggressive and creative when it comes to building one of the best tournaments that they want. Like some people, maybe they don't want to be the best tournament in the country, but some people say their tournament is the best tournament in the country, and it's really not. So
right. Yeah, no, that's just it. I mean, looking at certain tournaments over, like when we were looking up results, you'd look at a tournament and you'd see the other team sending like it was their JV team going there, and it's like, damn, dude, you went this far for that. You know what I mean? Like it's something you wouldn't normally look up, but I don't remember who we were trying to look up, but I'm looking at the tournament and I'm like, oh, this team's there, and it's like, oh no, that's their JV team they sent there, you know. So that kind of, I mean, they're like nothing against that they, they're going to go wrestle just as well, but man, I don't know, like.
Well, I think. I mean, obviously we're having two conversations, right? The one conversation is that the strength of schedule matters. I think coaches who don't put their kids out there in tough positions are only putting themselves in a position of disappointment later on, right? And then on the other hand, talking about tournaments and tournament directors and people who put on tournaments to go the extra mile and try to get creative in putting on an event like that really attracts the best. So ultimately, like Mark said, we're kind of junkies, like we're nut wrestling fans that really want to see the best compete against the best all the time. So
yeah. Well, I know that in the very beginning of the season, we went to, and I'm assuming it's an older tournament just because it has the term classic in it, but maybe that doesn't really mean that. We went to the Marmion Cadet Classic. Like, and now, like I said, the word classic makes me believe it's been around for a long time, which I don't know if that's the case.
Classic.
Yeah. But I'll put the teams there. Marmion's there, Maris is there, Lincoln Way West, Lockport, Huntley.
I'm glad you brought this up, Jim.
Yeah, that was a great tournament, right?
So I think it was a great tournament because it was the opening. It was like the day you could legally compete.
Yeah,
gonna be way better next year.
Okay, good.
So I had that. Dude, I think I really like some of the guys over at Marmion. the Cirenciones, and I mean, I don't have relationships with the others. No, I know what you're saying. I get the joke, but I'm a big fan of the Cirencione family, Anthony and Nick. And then I've always thought really highly of Sparty Chino. Sparty is number one. I don't know what he's thinking half the time with his Hawaiian shirts, but that's what they do there. And I think Fitz and Ryder's awesome as a wrestling coach. But I like Sparty is hilarious. He's funny as hell, and I've had some good conversations with him. And I talked to him at Big Tens on day one. He was out supporting Chumley, former Marmion wrestler who he didn't have the best tournament, but he did get his at-large bid, I believe. Yeah. So good for him. But we did talk about it, and I don't remember off the top of my head because I go crazy at Big Ten. I'm like a chicken with his head cut off, super excited. But he started going through the teams that are coming next year in addition to who's already there, and it's going to be a lot better too. It's only getting better. So I just thought I'd throw that out there.
Yeah, I mean, just talking about your boy Jim, 3A state champ and the 1A state champ battle right in the beginning of the year. I mean,
yeah, whatever the opening. I don't know when you can legally compete. November.
It's like the third weekend in November or something.
Yeah, so that's when it. Well, here the date of it was 11/27.
Yeah. So
within a couple of days of being, able to compete. Yeah, you had 2 state champs wrestle there. I mean, hell, there's probably more. I mean, if we went and looked at tournament results, there's probably about. So, but I mean, here, Marmion, they end up winning 3A team state. So you had the state championship team host the tournament and wrestled 24 of their kids that they had entered, right?
Yeah.
They're a state championship team. Maris was there. I mean, you go on and on. Just so,
next year,
I think that's a good tournament, man.
First year I just pulled the 5-year calendar up for the HSA. So next year's start date's November 10th. First day of you can compete is November 24th. So this past year it was November 25th. So 3 days from the day you could compete, the 25th. On the 27th, they had a tournament.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Chomping at the bit.
A good tournament. Yeah. A good tournament, which is,
Yeah. Again, this is kind of what we're talking about. The best people, the best are chasing the best. And, we had a lot of success this year I would say from a media marketing standpoint. I think, thanks again to you guys for helping out this year, but just elevating the exposure of wrestling is continuing to grow, and having showcase events and showcase duels throughout the year. I mean, that is what is really good for high school wrestling in the state of Illinois. We need to have the best teams duel each other. We need to have tournaments that the best teams go to and compete against each other. And yeah, I'm looking forward to next year. And Mark Stewart, if you say that tournament's going to be even better, then that's great for everybody involved.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I think something that you were talking about earlier with the idea of like the tournament directors, though, I think that's if we want to grow wrestling, grow these tournaments, and make them a little bit of more of like an elite or like a showcase type tournament where people want to come out. And I always look at a tournament like this, and it can be disappointing at times. It's kind of like how I feel about Fargo, and it pisses me off. Fargo's like the most elite talent. I get it, it's freestyle and Greco. But like you're at the Fargo Dome in an empty arena. And I get it, dude. Fargo's not the most enjoyable vacation spot in the middle of July. But it's like when you go to a high school tournament, I don't want to see it end up like Anthony Knox, his family in the stands, because that was pretty crazy. But like I want to see that type of like emotion without the violence, where they're packed and people are going crazy because it's a good thing, not a bad thing, but a good thing that you're just watching such elite kids from all over the country, or at least regionally, right? Like how cool would it be if you get you're at the Dvorak and you got Crown Point there, you got Iowa City West, you got Milton, Wisconsin, you got Apple Valley, Minnesota's there as well, right? So you're pulling 5-6 elite programs from outside of your state, and then at the same time you got Marmion, JCA, Montini, IC, Marion, Washington, Rockton, Hononegah, all in one gym. I mean, isn't that the ultimate goal?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the old saying, build it and they will come, right? Like if somebody built it, it would work.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the tournament you went to with Jimmy this year. And it was like, at first you're kind of disappointed because the numbers were low. But he got probably two of his best matches going into the regular season. Right? Where was he?
Oh, preseason nationals. Yeah.
Preseason nationals.
That was a last minute like decision. I looked at the wrestler list, saw a couple kids that he said, hey, I want to go wrestle these kids. And then, I mean, absolute last minute plans, you know.
But he got two absolute studs.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. Beat the kid out from Harvey Ludington and somebody else. But like,
Tanner Hodgins.
Tanner Hodge. Yep. That's who it was. Not Harvey Ludington.
Yep. Aiden Cooley. The two, like they were both ranked at 190. That was going to be his new weight class. So he's like, hey, I want to go rank couple of these ranked kids, or go wrestle a couple of these ranked kids. And yeah, it was like I say, man, total last minute thing. That's also the tournament that they just had in Iowa. There's preseason and there's postseason. They just had postseason nationals now, and I was kind of watching the wrestler list at 190, and it just never got to. It was never. I don't even say worth it. Sounds so terrible, but there was just no like. There was nobody ranked above. There was no reason to go. Does that make sense?
Yeah, nobody's
at that weight class,
I guess.
Yeah. You know, I mean, and I'm not the decision maker in that. Like, this is just like him relaying to me, like, all right, well, hey, there's nobody at this weight class. You know, let's not. You know, but I mean, we were on standby, ready to go. You know, I mean, if need be. I think that's so. I mean, that's chasing on your own. But like, if you're involved in a program that does it for you. You know, you have good coaches, good athletic director, whoever's all involved in making that schedule. I mean, that's huge, right? Because instead of you checking wrestler lists and doing this, hey, this is what we're going to do, our schedule. This is our schedule, and this is what we're going to do. You're going to get those matches. You're going to see those kids, and that's huge. It really is.
And that's the other thing people don't understand. I'm glad you brought that up. The thing that a lot of people do not understand about a scheduling, and like, why isn't so and so here? Why isn't so and so here? Well, listen, you sign a contract. An athletic director signs a contract that was sent over by another AD from a school. And he signs that contract for 2 years or 3 years, whatever it may be. Some ADs have a belief that like you honor the contract no matter what. Other ADs say, well, if you talk to their guy over there, see if it's, I've had that happen where I was like, hey, listen, I want out of this. This is a junk tournament. We won it. If we win it, we shouldn't be in it. We're not at that place where we should be winning shit. And I called my buddy and I'm like, hey, we went out. And he's like, that's great. Perfect. He's like, I got like 5 teams wanting to get in here. So it's not a big deal. I told my AD, he said, okay. And he called their AD and the AD's like, yeah, that's what he said. And they let us out. But a lot of ADs won't do it in general. It's like that old school, like system of honor the contract. And you do sign a contract when you enter a tournament as a school.
Yeah. Well, I mean, obviously contracts are helpful, right? Like if there's no type of certainty, then you can't depend on, putting the event together. I do think though, that's where my position is a lot of teams have enough kids that, if it's not as good, send your next best team. I mean, again, there are a lot of teams this year that I've talked to coaches that had 100+ kids. And it's like, okay, great. That's great. Now, some programs don't have that, right? So I understand that. But then only send 4, be okay with that. I think it's okay. I think it's okay.
I did that. When I first got into coaching, the first year I inherited a 2-19 program, and I got into a tournament. I called right away and I said, hey, listen, I really wanted in here. I got to be honest. I'm only going to bring 6 or 7 kids because these other kids will quit. Like, they're just not ready. And they were like kind of annoyed, but then we finished in 4th place as a team. Like, my 6 kids were all in the top 3. So I was like, the other ones they'll just get pinned twice. Yeah. And the following year I brought them all, but I needed to kind of like work on development. But I think you're right. It's kind of like it's like Mount Carmel back in '94 or whatever, when they canceled the postseason because they sent their freshman or their JV team over to some tournament and they ran through it, but you only had 3 dates. So they were like, well, that was our JV. And they're like, doesn't matter. Well, now we don't have those rules. So in some of these programs, they do have some really, really good kids that just can't cut the lineup. So send them.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I think it's a great time for everybody to adapt their thinking as to how they do this stuff, and I really hope that again, I think, I don't know if we did it elegantly to explain some of these things, but I do think that this is the new era of wrestling with the new rules, and I really think that if we adapt and change how we go about it. And again, I'm with you, Mark. There's some kids, some teams. I've coached at public schools as well. When I was, I've coached at teams that had varied degrees of ability, and you don't want to send a kid who's not ready to an elite tournament just because you got to send a couple others. But you have to be okay with saying, hey, listen, I only have 6 kids, and the tournament director has to be a hustler. The tournament director says, all right, tell me what weights they are. All right, you can only be in these weights. Okay, if they're not in these weights, then they can't wrestle. Okay, good. I'll go get the other weights filled. You have to be, somebody has to be persistent in that. Like, somebody has to be good at their job. And
For sure.
so if people can do that and step up and put the right people in those positions, then all the tournaments will be better. And if you only have 6 kids that you want to send to this tournament, great. Then we'll make do and we'll figure it out.
Yeah. Well, that
real
one,
quick,
that Illini Classic, that was a good tournament, right? They got Clovis, California to come in.
Yeah.
That was a good
Gabe
tournament.
Gabe Flores flew back in with his guys.
Yep. Former practice partner of mine.
And then we got Illinois kids flying out to Doc B. And then wrestling Clovis as well. I think IC does it. Montini maybe too? Or did they yeah.
Obviously with those funding, having people fundraise, getting people to support the traveling, that stuff's really hard. We were just talking about traveling in state to tournaments and stuff, but traveling out of state is that's a tough game.
Hey, real quick, since we were talking about Dvorak and teams, if you have a relationship with the tournament director. I've spoken to Manny Silva and Fernie Silva because they know the AD over there pretty well. But I talked to the Roxana guys. They are desperately wanting the Dvorak. And one of the things I did want to talk about with strength of schedule that affects teams. Marion has a great schedule. They did not have the best state duels, right? Cold City did, followed by Vandalia, right? Roxana didn't perform very well at a regional, so they got second, so they didn't even get the team state option, right? I think they got beat by Murfreesboro. But a lot of those schools down south, they want to come up and compete. How do they do it? Well, they got to get in. But Coal City, they stay pretty local in their area, and they still found a lot of success and have for many, many years. I think that's from having a pretty good coaching staff and a good youth building program through their middle school. And then I think a bunch of them do wrestle for Callan in the offseason, which is the JCA. I don't know that they admit that, but I see them, so I know they do. And then, the Waddles are out there scrapping all over the country. I'm not saying the rest of Vandalia does. I don't know that I've seen Phil Pott or Donald Hinton or Dylan Hinton, whatever his name. No offense, or if I screwed your name up, but I haven't seen them out elsewhere. But I do know this. I know that Junior Green had Riggs, Tees. They want in the Dvorak. They don't care how they want in the Dvorak. They want to come up and wrestle better competition up north.
Yeah. Well, we'll see what we can do. I definitely think you're right. I think some people need to know some of these kids are. Some people don't know who's in the lineup. People don't. They're just running tournaments. But yeah, I think we can reach out. I'll reach out and we'll figure it out.
Well, it's a lot easier to do that at a tournament than it is a duel, right? As far as setting that stuff up goes, it's a lot easier to set up a handful of kids from here and a handful of kids here from for a tournament opposed to setting up a duel, correct?
Yeah, possibly. I guess I don't know what you're suggesting.
They
can come up for a duel. Duels, but there's no limit on duel dates either.
Okay. But there is a limit. You got 45 match count, right? No matter what you do, you're capped at 45.
Yeah. Tournaments are better than duels.
Yeah, I'm in the belief that like I want to get rid of as many duels as I can and wrestle every Friday, Saturday in a big tournament.
Yeah, so
It,
we talked about this a lot in coaches meetings when I was still coaching too. Like, a lot of conferences have conference requirements where you have to duel people in your conference, and it takes 2 matches, right? So oftentimes you'll end up just not taking the better kids because why would you take them to lose mat count or match counts against like a 30-second pin, right? But you have to show up. So you have to show up to that duel. You can't be at practice. And so those requirements kind of limit your ability to kind of think outside the box. I really like the idea of showcase duels where, again, Marion came to Hananiga this year, right? I really would prefer that we could pack the house in and get more people in, but you can't if other people are doing. I mean, I think it was pretty good this year, but in general, having a showcase duel and having fans of wrestling, kids club kids, the families come and watch elite level wrestling, or or even just evenly matched teams. I think that that's really good for the sport.
Oh yeah.
But
yeah, we did that when I was at Gray's Lake. We did that. We had like we picked our duel for the year that would be like that duel. It was usually like a rival, somebody within the conference that there was actually like a lot of it would be tight, a lot of good matchups. And then we have our youth club show up with all their families. They don't go to practice, and then they walk out with either 1 or 2 kids will walk out with our varsity wrestler and they shake hands with the opposing kid. And it does pack the place. One thing I will say, we were talking a little bit, you were talking about the idea of not sending your best kids because they're going to go out and pin some kid in 30 seconds. Antioch High School over the years has done a really good job of that, where Barrero, who, in case anybody's wondering, Wilbur Barrero retired as the head coach at Antioch. I mean, he's been there forever at awards banquet earlier last week. But what they would do is they'd like keep their varsity at home, and they'd send the JV and maybe a couple varsity kids that could use the matches to the mat time, but they'd keep a lot of their kids home for quite a few duels that were, let's just say, weren't going to be the most competitive, or there was going to be a shit ton of forfeits, because you see a lot of that still up here.
Yeah,
from your squad.
Duels are a pain in the ass because say you have a team that there's a good chance you don't get to see the kid you wanted to see because the way people get bumped around or whatever. You know what I mean? Like duels are kind of a pain in the ass.
Yeah.
I guess you want to win the duel, but
I think that's the hard part. You have to, duels just have to have a different mindset. It's not about necessarily if I've always encouraged people to if there's two high schools wrestling each other and they're not really competitively deep on the roster size, try to get the individual matchups to showcase the best wrestling. But when you have 2 teams that are capable of beating each other and they have a full lineup, sometimes you just don't get the best matchup.
Right.
But it is what it is. I think you have to choose what the point is of the evening. So
yeah, I think treat a duel like a tournament. You know what I mean? Like get the
get the match.
Yeah. But
yeah. Yeah, guys, I think that was solid convo. You guys got anything else before I let you go?
Yeah, real quick. I just want to give a shout out here. I noticed this happened this weekend. I don't remember all the names, but Warren High School, they had Nick Hermson won IWCA Fresh South State. He's kind of been in a weight class where he can't really get pet. You got Royce Lopez, Aaron Stewart, and then I forget the other kid they had that was a state qualifier. So he went on one Fresh South State. They had a girl win Fresh South State. They had Noble win. They had Noble won it out at the postseason nationals. Aaron Stewart got upset by Xavier Smith from Indiana. And then Royce Lopez also plays. So I know a lot of people kind of take a break here. And then today's like that day where people get back into it again, start going to train again. I think Corey Clark started last week. But a lot of Illinois kids kind of took a little break. But it looks like the Warren Township kids did not. And they had a pretty successful weekend between IWCOA and the postseason.
Yeah.
Congrats, guys. All right. We'll catch up again. See ya.
All right.
Later, fellas.